Well, hey there, all you students, seekers, and other inquiring minds of YouTube. It's me, your boy Shane, and I'm back today, as promised, with a video about the outer court experience in traditional Wicca. Now, as I've said in previous videos, all covens are autonomous. I don't speak for all of them. I would never claim to speak for all of them. Each group is absolutely empowered to do what is right and best and a good fit for their own group, which is part of the beauty of it. That being said, a lot of groups do operate with the outer court model, which is to say, it's almost like a trial run, right? For lack of a better term. It's a training program and a trial run for interested parties who may or may not be offered initiation at the end of, completing the program, right? My partner and co-priest likes to call the outer court witchy hangout time, but it's really so much more than that. So like I said, my first caveat is the fact that not all covens do this, right? Some covens have a much less formal method of vetting potential members. They will get to know you in a social setting. Maybe you guys all go out for brunch or dinner, or you have like movie night, right? Watch cue up The Wicker Man, or, a documentary on witchcraft or tribal magic or religion. Or watch The Craft or something silly, right? Like, giggle together and talk about stuff. Maybe you go on a museum trip and look at, magical artifacts and antiquities and religious art, from the ancient Greeks or Romans or Egyptians or whatever. Or maybe you guys will go to like a Unitarian service. Like sometimes they do seasonal rituals, or if they have a cups chapter for Universalist pagans, or some other kind of like open, pagan event in a park or something, or go to, a Gnostic mass and check it out and talk about, what did you think about that? If there is a local chapter of the OTO near your group. Or something like one of the things we did when my partner and I were kind of interviewing prospective members for our outer court, we held a divination picnic. It was really cute. We met in Central Park, because we are in New York City. And everybody brought blankets and everyone brought some food. Our coven maiden, who obviously was not our coven maiden at the time, but the woman who ended up being our coven maiden, made the most bomb fried chicken I've probably ever had in my life. And we all brought food and sides and, plates and forks and blankets and stuff and our favorite divination tools. So, like, we all camped out in Central Park for a few hours and, practice reading for each other and getting to know each other. So that is a more informal method that some people use to determine if you are going to be a good fit for their coven. But some covens like to take a more structured and ritualistic approach. And like I said, they both have their benefits. Neither one is more right or better or superior to the other. It's just a matter of what works for that group. I like to do outer court, even if we don't. So traditionally, for whatever that's worth, a lot of outer court training will be at least a year and a day. That's the proverbial, year and a day in Wicca, right? So I think me personally, I believe I was in outer court for about a year and 2 or 3 months. Some of the people in our coven were like a little over a year and a half. Sometimes you just know, and someone, there's no use making someone continue on in an outer court setting when you're going to offer them an initiation. So, we did take someone at the 9-month mark. We're like, okay, we're sure, we're dead certain, so, it's about a year. And the reason it's about a year is because we have, and I know a lot of other groups who, utilize this system, have like a set of lessons that we want to get through. Now, outer court kind of gets a bad rap, or it kind of gets misrepresented as like, well, you're teaching them fake Wicca. Well, no, we're not. We're just not giving them all the goodies, right? Like, we're not sharing all the, juicy oathbound stuff because we can't. Because, again, we took oaths, but also because they haven't gotten the training and the fundamentals to be able to use those techniques properly, right? So, you have to walk before you can run, right? And it's not about like, oh, I can't share this magical technique with you because it's super secret. But it might be because you haven't learned about grounding it or cleansing it or how to properly raise energy or how to properly put it back down. So no, I'm not going to share more advanced practices with you. And it has nothing to do with the fact that like I'm in with the in crowd and you aren't. It's just because, you're not ready and you have to learn fundamentals before you can kind of graduate to that stuff. Really, I promise you, we're not as, snobby and as exclusive and as people make us out to be as Gardnerians, right? But anyway, so like I said, a lot of groups have a set of lessons. We certainly have a set of lessons that we like to go through with our people before we offer them initiation, and it's all fundamentals. It's basic building block stuff that you should have squarely under your belt before you're initiated and just thrown into circle, right? Because at Gardnerian initiation, you are priest and witch, or priestess and witch, and you're intended to hit that ground running. So before that happens, we want to teach you some basic visualization. We want to teach you how to, sense energy. Can you feel it moving around you? Can you describe it? Can you, alter it and shape it at will? So we, we do go, like I said, we go through certain lessons. We talk about a little mythology. We do a lot of lessons on magic because magic is a very important part of our spiritual practice, I believe. So we do a whole day just talking about magical ethics and hypothetical situations and, kind of hot topics like that. We do a whole day about magical principles, about, acting in accord on the mundane level and about magic flowing along the path of least resistance and about magical specificity and, ask for exactly what you want. We talk a whole day about magical techniques. Like I said, nothing oathbound, anything that you can pick up, in any 101 book, just to give someone a solid toolbox with which to start experimenting magically. We do a whole lesson on the Wheel of the Year and what makes the, kind of our Wheel of the Year different from what you might see again in a 101 book, right? It's not the generic pagan Wheel of the Year. There are certain things that are a little bit tradition specific. We do a day on divination, just because it's an important tool for a witch to have, right? And we do a day on Gardnerian history, a little bit about the structure of the coven and the hierarchy and what some of those terminology, some of that vocabulary means. What's a high priestess and a queen and a magus and a first degree, second degree, all that sort of Gardnerian specific lingo, right? And we talk about Gardner and his high priestesses and some of the lines. And, we don't, certainly don't disclose anyone else's identities, but again, anything that you could find in a, Philip Heselton book, right, is fair game. So we talk a little bit about history, and we talk about history of covens and the history of the outer court, because the outer court is a relatively modern invention. So there are lessons. We have an outer court in our group. Again, this is specific to us here in Queens. We have an outer court textbook. It is The Elements of Ritual by Deborah Lipp. And other people use different readings. Sometimes they use Gardner or Valiente or the Ferrars or, whatever. I could make a whole other video just on my recommended reading list. And actually, my best friend, who also has a channel, I'll link his video below. He did. It's a staggering 40-something minute video, but it is an excellent, excellent resource on recommended reading. Anywho, each group has their own recommended reading list based on what each group thinks, needs to be absorbed before you're considered as a candidate for initiation. So you may get reading assignments, you may get writing assignments, you may get other certain projects, like, maybe an art project, right? Like, that's fun. Put together a collage of how, a visual reaction or visual statement, right? An emotional kind of response to how you experience the goddess, for example, right? That's actually a really fun assignment. Why have I never done that? But you might get assignments like that, or to research certain topics, or things like, sew your own robe, or start to procure your own tools and alter your own tools and paint them or put certain things on them, right? So you may get projects like that. You may get, like I said, certain reading or writing assignments, journal prompts, go home and meditate, for 10 minutes each day and make a journal about it. Go home and write a couple of paragraphs on why you want to, be a part of the Gardnerian tradition and what you plan on bringing to the tradition and what you hope to get out of it, right? So exercises like that. And then, maybe there'll be like a Sabbat or two, like a kind of a pagan level Sabbat, so that you can kind of get the vibe. Like I said, not every group circles with their pagans or with their outer court people or with their students or seekers, whatever terminology they're using. But I like to, because I think it's important to know if you're going to energetically vibe with them. If it feels good to be in a circle with them. I think it's important to know if they can, if you can behave yourself in circle, or if you are just kind of all over the place and your attention's wandering and you kind of stumble out of the boundaries of the circle and start, going off towards the hallway or something crazy. Or if you fidget, or if the energy of circle makes you physically ill or gets you dizzy or lightheaded. Or if you're just, rude and loud and, you interrupt, or if you make too many jokes during a serious moment, or if you clam up and don't share when it's time to talk over cakes and wine. Whatever. I want to experience what you're like in circle, before I commit to initiating you. And I think all those things are really important. Again, with the group that you find, your mileage may vary. The other important thing to know is, you're going to be asked to do some of the heavy lifting. You're going to be asked to probably help set up a little bit, clean up a little bit. You might be asked to set up the altar, or to polish the candlesticks, or to sweep or vacuum the ritual space, or to, wipe out the tub and get the ritual bath ready, or to, hang up some seasonal decorations. There is a point to that, and it's not for so that the high priest and high priestess can rest on their laurels and get free labor. I promise you that's not the reason. It's that you learn by doing, right? Most of us are kinesthetic learners, and it is much easier to learn how to set up an altar properly by doing it with your own hands and getting it into your muscle memory than it is just watching somebody else, or by memorizing a diagram of how the altar should be set up, or by reading it in a book, or by some other method, right? And the more you do it and get that hands-on experience, the easier that's going to be. And part of it is you have to pay your dues. And I don't mean that in a hazing, kick your butt around the circle, make you wait on other people hand and foot type of thing. It should absolutely not be about that. But, everyone who was initiated into that coven before you swept and mopped the the coven stead, and polished the candlesticks, and hung up the decorations, and cleaned off all the wax off the altar cloth, and dumped out the incense ash after ritual. Every single person who came in that coven before you did those things. Now it is, they've passed the torch. Now it is your turn. And then someday it'll be someone else's turn. Again, it's not about, abusing power or, making you do, don't get me wrong, there's a line, right? Like, nobody should be asking you to, like, work in their shop for free or babysit their kids or pick up their dry cleaning. That does not teach you anything about the craft, okay? That is absolutely not what your training experience should be about. But like I said, hanging up, decorate the cauldron with greenery or, stick all these candles in candle holders. Yeah, absolutely. Similarly, you might be asked to, bring wine or bring some candles from time to time, or you might be told to pick up some incense on your way in or to bring a cake, or some food for like a potluck dinner. And again, that is absolutely not out of, that is all reasonable. You shouldn't be footing the bill for, big coven dinners and kind of paying everyone's way. And you should not be the only person who ever brings wine or bread or flowers or incense or whatever. Again, this shouldn't be costing you, shouldn't be running your pockets, right? Like, this Wiccan training does not cost money. I'll say that again for those of you, say it louder for those in the back, right? Wiccan training does not cost money. If a high priestess or high priest or coven says that they want cash donations or cash money in exchange for your lessons, run, don't walk in the other direction. But like I said, it is absolutely common and reasonable to expect you to bring, donations in kind. So, everyone in my group brings a food item. Everyone brings wine sometimes. We all rotate through who brings flowers for the altar or, like I said, greenery to hang up at Yule or whatever the case may be. Okay, it's just fair is fair. It's not fair to ask one person to constantly shoulder that burden. Whether it is someone in training, it should never be always the student. It should never be always the high priestess. It's got to be equitable. Sorry. Again, I hope this goes without saying at this point. And I could make a whole video about this. I could spout off at the mouth for 30 minutes about this. But just kind of like in that same line of you should not be paying for training, the only thing that's more egregiously wrong than that is you should never be asked to provide sexual favors in exchange for training or initiation. Ever, 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 ever. And if someone brings that up, if someone asks you to do that, you need to just start screaming your head off and tell as many people as possible. Like I said, I could make a whole video about that, and I might someday, but that's enough for you to know for now. There is no sex involved in Gardnerian training. There should be no cash involved in Gardnerian training. You might participate in rituals. You might be asked, like I said, to bring things or do certain reading assignments or journal prompts or writing assignments or meditation or, demonstrate a skill like tarot reading or, listen to a lecture. But, that's what you can kind of expect in a general roundabout way. And the inspiration for this video came from the fact that, ever since the pandemic started last year, my partner and I have just been absolutely inundated with emails from seekers. And when I talk to other leaders in our spiritual community, I have found that that is not specific to us. That has kind of been a common theme since quarantine started. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think in really practical terms, everyone was sitting at home and kind of bored and had time finally to kind of pursue these interests and had time to look up contact information for groups and had time to compose emails and send them, and to write those letters of inquiry for the first time. But I think there's also another kind of larger, more abstract reason behind that, which is, in times of severe stress and trauma and, everything that the pandemic has brought about, this is just human nature to start going looking for the answers to the bigger questions, right? So, when we start wondering, like, what is all the point to this? Why am I here? What's the meaning of life? Why was I put on earth? Is there anything after death? Etc., etc., etc. That's when we turn to religion and or spirituality in an attempt to, gain some wisdom and clarity and insight into those things. So it is not at all surprising to me that people have been turning out in droves. And we just got tired of, my partner has a lot of patience sometimes, and he will answer each one of these emails in a long, personalized explanation of who we are and what we do and what outer court training looks like. And finally one day I was like, oh my God, Mario, enough. I cannot believe that you, and I have permission to share his name with you, right? I cannot believe that you write this, like you type this out every single time you get a letter of inquiry. Like, if you're not going to copy and paste, like, let's just make a video and, kind of, hey, here's the link, click on it, come back to me with whatever questions you have. But like I said, every group's a little bit different, but in a nutshell, that is more or less what you can expect. As always, if there is a group that you are approaching or talking to or studying with, ask them how they do it. They should be fairly upfront with you. They shouldn't be like, "Oh, we can't tell you that." Wah. No, are they going to share what happens in an initiation ritual or what might happen after? No, of course not. That would ruin the experience for you. But what you can expect to learn or do in the months leading up to that, they should be fairly forthcoming. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers some of your questions. If there's anything you want to know about outer court training or, Wiccan training or how to approach a group or whatever, leave me a question, leave me a comment. I have recently set up an email address specific for, my witchy brand. I am Artemis NYC here on the YouTube. I am Artemis NYC here on the Twitter. And I am Artemis NYC on the Patreon. So I like to put the in front of those things because it really upsets younger people. Like the Netflix and the Facebook, right? But so I have set up an email address for this account. I believe it's artemisnyc@yahoo.com. I'm just not yet in the habit of checking it frequently. So hopefully I will start doing that soon. But if you have a question, if you have a comment, please always leave it below. I love to create dialogue with you guys, okay? And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.